Well, Tyler, welcome to the show today. I'm so thrilled to have you here. For those listening in, and I don't like to have too many of the editorial notes, I joined a little bit early, and Tyler joined a little bit early, and he heard me yelling at my dogs, and so it was a funny way to start off, and I immediately knew I knew I liked this guy, and now I like him even more. So I'm happy to have you here today, Tyler.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, let's jump right in. You have a fascinating life, and I wish we had like 5 hours because I really want to ask you all these questions. But we'll try to cover it in short order. So there's a little bit of a, I'm sure, a tough spot, but it does lead into our bigger conversation that we'll have about the foundation in a bit. But after your father's passing in 2003, this is John Ritter, and we'll talk a little bit about him. I think a lot of people remember him from Three's Company, among other shows. But you stepped away from Hollywood to teach English in Argentina for 3 years. You know, it sounds like you really kind of said, I need a reset, I need some headspace. So talk a little bit about how that period shaped your perspective on what a meaningful life looks like outside of the spotlight.
Absolutely. Yes, I moved to Argentina in 2007, actually with two friends of mine from Los Angeles. We found ourselves working at a cooperative, and the cooperative was born out of a financial need. The economy in Argentina had collapsed in 2001. And this is a vulnerable community, financially speaking. Culturally and socially, it's an incredible community. And so what they sort of decided in the aftermath of 2001 was we can't trust this government. You know, they've repeatedly let us down. And so we are just going to use our minds and our hearts, and everybody here has a gift. So they built this cooperative where everybody could contribute whatever skills and goods they had. And they opened up the doors to, international students and workers, people who wanted to help. So my friends and I found this cooperative, and basically they opened the door and said, okay, what do you guys have? How can you help this community? And I went, I know English. I can help with computation. My Spanish at this point is terrible, so I can be a wrangler for the kindergartners that they had just opened there. And I really appreciated that. That it was just everybody has something special. Everybody has a tool. And I think for me, that just felt like such a relief that it wasn't, no one was asking something that had been gifted to me or something that I was born into. It was, well, I had to work super hard to learn English. I was born in Los Angeles, so that did come easy, but it also felt like it was mine, and it was something that set me apart from my family and from my culture, and I really found a place there. And the idea was actually to work at this cooperative for 1 year, but I
Mhm.
met my wife 6 weeks after I landed in Argentina. And that was one of the big motivators to then extending my stay for what at the time I thought was I might just stay there forever. Eventually, we did move back to Los Angeles after 3 years, and we've been here now for 15. So yeah, that was 18 years ago, which is wild.
Funny how that special person in your life showing up can have that kind of impact, right?
Yes, yeah, yeah. She's had a
Well,
huge impact on me in many, many ways, as I'm sure I'll be talking about.
Well, that's good. And I'm happy for you because there is nothing like a good relationship to soothe the soul. I do want to talk a little bit about the fact that, you had mentioned that you, in doing my research, you hadn't always planned to pursue an acting career in spite of growing up in a family of famous actors. So talk a little bit about what that spark was that led you back to the acting career. I'm guessing that coincided a bit with the decision you and your wife made to move back to Los Angeles.
Yeah, absolutely. I was, looking for my own lane in life, and I had always enjoyed acting. I had made student films, and it felt I could feel that pull, but I wanted to feel justified in earning my own legacy of sorts. But the theater scene in Buenos Aires is freaking incredible, and my wife was a part of it. And she worked in musical theater, but we went out to plays, and it was just so alive there, um, in a way that having grown up in LA, we went to a certain amount of musical theater in particular, but I just had a completely different experience as I was learning a new language, learning a new culture. Um, that woke something up inside me. Also realizing that when I considered other professions, when I would mention, oh, do you guys think I should maybe study, get into law school eventually? Everybody just would shake their head like, you do not have that that bandwidth. Uh, and so, bouncing ideas and eventually saying, I'm thinking of giving this a go and really, really trying for it and studying and taking it seriously and um, trying not to take any handouts. Of course, I just with a name, you have a certain amount of
Yeah.
leverage there, which I have to just accept within life. But I took the profession and the art seriously. My wife actually in Argentina helped me get my first agent to do commercials while I was in Argentina. So I started down there, and then I thought, you know what, I might have a little bit more success in my native tongue. Uh, and I had felt the humiliation of the constant rejection there as well. So I felt like I built up a thick skin to finally, moving back here and pursuing it full time. And I've been loving the journey ever since. The ups and the downs, you got to make
Yeah.
peace with it.
Well, we're grateful to have you back. And speaking of your work, there's a show called Painkiller, and the show deals with heavy themes of the opioid crisis, something that's obviously continues to plague us, right? So, how did playing John Brownlee change your understanding of this intersection between corporate morality and public health?
Ooh. Well, John Brownlee, for anyone who didn't watch, was a U.S. attorney for the Western District of Virginia in those early 2000s to mid 2000s. And he was one of the major figures in kind of what eventually made Purdue Pharma a household name as a corporation that was just criminally negligent and aggressive in tactics with Oxycontin, among other things. And the most powerful corporations in the world. And I think the convictions were not satisfactory. I'm sure. First of all, I never met John Brownlee. I wish I had. I hope he liked the show and I hope he liked my representation. But I'm imagining he was hoping for Purdue Pharma to face even stronger consequences. But the result of all of that hard work was essentially the entire country came together and said, well, we're being abused here and we're paying the price. And this corporation is just going to keep doing whatever they can to make money. That is what corporations do. I think a lot of us are
Sadly,
waking
yeah.
up to that. And the only way a corporation is going to find its moral compass is if the people tell it that it needs to have it. And as soon as we take our eye off the ball, they will continue to find means to making the most profit for the least amount of effort. And, if that's bulldozing through a rainforest or, selling very addictive drugs and saying they're not addictive, we know that they will do that. And it's sort of, you imagine there must be good people on these boards. And it's almost like there's a mob mentality and one bad decision leads to another, or there are just a few really corrupt people that with enough power can do just absolute damage all over the place. And certainly with the opioid epidemic, you think, oh, wow, if this one guy wasn't working, at the FDA, or if this one person hadn't had that idea, we could have avoided thousands and thousands of deaths. But a few people with absolute power, as we know, can just wreak horrible damage. And so, as a community of the general population, I feel a responsibility to keep my eye on the ball and talk about what we see with our eyes. What does corruption look like? How is it trying to be sold to us that it benefits us in some way? To try to just constantly peek behind the curtain. And yeah, certainly playing that role and seeing the amount of effort that goes into trying to take down a massive corporation. It really was incredible and ultimately uplifting, even though, as you said, the situation has gotten worse with fentanyl and we're just in an absolute crisis.
Yeah, it is
Um,
tough, but it's part of why I do this podcast, right? Because there are good people like you and your family in the world that are doing good, and so I think it's a helpful reminder to say there are bad actors. We all know it, but there are also a lot of really good people who are doing a lot of really good things, and so let's try to focus on the positive, and maybe that's just the
yes,
glass
and
half full in me.
shine a light on those people.
That's right.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's right. So speaking of, important roles, I think one of your biggest sort of performances was in a show called The McCarthys. You played a character named Ronnie, who is an openly gay character in a mainstream sitcom, which has, become more of the norm. You and I were joking about your appearance on Modern Family and your cameo with Mitchell in one of those. Speaking
Yeah.
of, but looking back, what kind of feedback did you get regarding the importance of that representation for viewers at the time?
Yeah, I think obviously we know representation is very important for community and for awareness and just building compassion. I think I was very proud of that show. I was very proud of that role. I actually just had dinner with much of the cast and the
Oh, nice.
showrunner and the director, and we're all still very close, and we feel like we had something special there for that season. But I think I have to say, looking back, that was over a decade ago. I was a little bit naive to step into that role, coming from a progressive community, thinking that I understood there was a responsibility. But I faced a lot of questions of, is it fair? Is it right that you, as a straight male man, is playing this role? I heard some of that, and I thought, at the time, I am coaching this character with absolute love and compassion, and I'm bringing humanity, and so I feel like I'm representing this character and supporting this community. I remember being sort of shocked of thinking, well, this is what actors do a little bit. And yeah, I was 30. I maybe should have anticipated that a little bit more. But again, I was like in the grind, and these things happen quickly. And I was learning fast on the job. And I think a lot of people were, that the role didn't go to an actor who was also openly homosexual. I still am proud of the job. Um, It was one of the greatest times of my life. And I think I represented the community well. I continue to think that everybody needs representation. Everybody should have a shot at getting a role. I know they saw a lot of people for that role. It wasn't offered to me. I didn't jump ahead of the line. It was the opposite. I was towards the end of the group, which I think also helped me just hold on to that um, peace of mind that I brought something that was appreciated and specific, I hope, as a creative uh, artist. And I hope I hope there's some just forgiveness in that. In the world of acting and the world of arts, it can get murky in that situation where there needs to be representation. How close does the actor need to be in his or her personal life to meet that moment? And I think we're continuing to talk about that and sort of find our way through it. But I am
But
proud of that, and people can still find it. It's out there. It's a really funny show, and we need funny shows.
no, we do need funny shows. And I think I appreciate your honest answer on that one. And I think the only thing you can do, right, is go in with a good intention. And it sounds like you did. You also have some perspective on the fact that, yes, you understand some of the blowback, but you were taking a role and you did the best job that you could. And so, anyway, kudos for taking that on and having the EQ around that. One of the things I do want to shift to, and anyone just listening to, you can't see this, but anyone that's watching, Tyler has a drum set in his
Oh,
background. So this is a little bit of like a foreshadowing.
oh yeah.
Outside of acting, and there we go. Outside of acting, your creative pursuits in music and writing, what's a cause or passion project that you're currently most excited about?
I'm hardly a musician. I can feel my wife being like, if you call yourself, I've been trying to learn the guitar for 18 years. I don't have the touch, but I do love music and I do mess around with it. But yeah, passion projects and causes that I'm excited about. I have to say, an article came out. this was within the last year, regarding gene therapy for Huntington's disease.
Hmm.
I want to say it's called AMT 130, but anyone who's interested or wants to learn about Huntington's disease and its horrible nature, serious progress was made recently. And my wife and I started an annual fundraiser called Freeze HD. We have some people very close to us who are affected by it. It's a terrible disease. It's cousin to Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. They're sort of in a horrible family there together. And so I'm excited because there have been so many promises of we think we're on the cusp of a cure or a treatment, and then it falls through, and it turned out, there was just too much optimism. And this seems to really work. With everybody that took this gene therapy, they saw 75% slowing in the progression of the disease, which is it's massive. And so I've been very giddy about that. Seeing any progress in an area that dark is just uplifting. And, there's a lot of worry around AI, but the one little corner that I'm like, in the medical field, it might be able to do some really incredible things.
Hmm.
And I don't think AI had anything to do with this particular issue, but I'm just like keeping my fingers crossed that we can keep a handle on this thing and just eradicate some of these worst plagues that still are among us. So that's that. And then, I have two young kids that if I think about a passion project, this is actually my son's drum set that he's learning.
Gotcha.
He's at School of Rock, and so fostering, their growth and committing myself to improving their community and their future. That's top of the list. I have to say that too.
Well, I love that. And I love that priority. And by the way, if you want to share that link with me
Oh yeah,
about your new foundation, I will put that in the show notes. So thank you. And bless you for doing that. And I'm a big fan. And you're right. Anytime we can break through and have a meaningful breakthrough of these diseases and, conditions that afflict people and make their lives miserable, I think we should absolutely be celebrating those. So that's a good one.
yeah,
On a related note, I do want to shift gears because this is one of the main reasons we have you here, to talk about the John Ritter Foundation. So your family established this foundation just weeks after your father's passing in 2003. Tell us a little bit more about the mission and purpose for people that don't know about it.
yes. So just briefly, for anyone that doesn't know, my dad passed from an aortic dissection, which is a tear in the lining of the aorta. And the aorta is sort of a candy cane shaped tube that comes out of the heart and pumps blood to the rest of our body. You can imagine it's very important that it works well for survival. And so a tear in the lining can lead to blood filling up in the heart chamber, and you're in serious danger very quickly if there's a tear. Um, so, yes, my stepmom started, I think, the same year he passed. He passed in September. And I think by the end of 2003, she had John Ritter Foundation going. She was running it herself. The idea was basically, if you know that you're at risk for an aortic aneurysm or dissection, you can vastly improve your likelihood of surviving it and living out your life. And so that's what the foundation is. I joined the board a few years ago, and our mission statement is to raise awareness of aortic disease and to further fund research and understanding it better and getting the right information out to as many people as we can.
Well, thank you. That's a good description of it. And thank you to Carolyn Wong, who's one of your co-board members, for connecting the two of us. She and I work together. I do want to dive into that a little bit. So aortic dissection, if I'm not mistaken, is oftenly misdiagnosed as a heart attack. And I think this is part of what you're dealing with. That's what happened with your dad. And so let's talk a little bit about how JRF is working specifically to educate the medical community. It's one thing to educate us, the patients, right? But the medical community is the one that's on the front line diagnosing. And so what role do you think storytelling plays in making sure doctors think aorta in high pressure moments?
Yeah, you could probably tell just by the way I'm talking about an aorta as a candy cane shaped tube. That I'm not a medical professional. I've never even played a doctor on TV. But
Yet,
what
yet,
so
Tyler.
I am not involved in educating the medical community, but what I can do, sort of thinking back to that cooperative, my one tool, my one sort of weapon against this disease is that I am one of the few public faces of this disease. So I have been on panels with the medical community and said, um, hey guys, this 20,000 people a year that we know of, around 20,000, are going to suffer an aortic dissection in this country. A lot of it is misdiagnosed. And so I'm just here to say, hi, remember me? This is a real thing. And you guys have figured out exactly how to treat this. And thank you. And I love you. And we need more people like you. So I'm basically there to thank all of them, praise them, and then say, hey, don't forget this. This is very deadly. It's, not to compare, and it's not a competition, but if you have an aortic dissection, you are at extreme risk. It's more dangerous than a heart attack, as just mortality goes. The issue is heart attacks are more common. There are diseases that are and ailments that are more common. 20,000 is a lot, but you start looking at some of these other numbers and you can understand doctors have a million options to go through if somebody comes into an emergency room presenting severe chest pain, that just came on. They have to rule out heart attack. They have to rule out a lot of issues. Our goal and my goal is to just say, hey, don't forget about the aorta. If we can rule that out, then we can say we've done our job. And I do want to say that the pit just had this exact moment. Somebody came into
Yep.
the ER on the show, The Pit, which is on HBO Max, and they said, okay, we have to rule out an aortic dissection. And it's like, for us, with this foundation, we're like, yes, that's it. That's what we want to do, because the doctors, once they know how to treat it. And another stat that is just sort of devastating is that 50% of people who have an aortic dissection pass before they make it to the hospital. So that just speaks to the importance of, yes, educating the medical community, but the responsibility on us, the general public, to know, are we at risk? Do we have a family member that has suffered this? And if we are, let's get on top of it. Let's get ahead of it. Let's start having our echocardiograms, and we can talk about that further down the line if you want. But there are ways that I personally, and I know other people, have taken this challenge on, and we're going to know that it's happening to us. So we hopefully, will be some of the lucky ones who jump right into a car, get to that emergency room, and can say, hey, check this first. I'm almost positive this is what's going on with me. If I have sudden chest pain, that's going to be top of the list. So,
Right.
yeah.
Well, that's a good that's a good lead into the next question, because it is one of the things I believe that the foundation places that heavy emphasis on the genetic component of the aortic disease. So maybe talk a little bit about how you and your siblings, Jason, Carly, Noah, balance the weight of this family health legacy with empowering messages, knowledge, early screening. I think you touched on it a little bit, which is going in and saying, I know that I'm at risk for this, so please start here. Although if you're not verbal, you went in, God forbid you were traveling or something like that. But tell us a little bit more about that sort of emphasis that the foundation places on that, the genetic component.
Absolutely. I think once the genetic component became very clear for me, I understood my role in this mission. And some of the early evidence that we saw 2003 on, as my stepmom, Amy Yazbek, started this foundation, is she was getting feedback from people saying, hey, I just want to say my husband or I went into the ER, or my child went into the ER, and the doctor said, let's check the John Ritter situation. It was already that conscientiousness was spreading, or sort of that like collective consciousness, I should say, was starting to trickle out into other communities. And we were hearing these stories of like, hey, just want to say thank you for helping to raise awareness. It saved a life. And so early on, it was going, oh, wow, okay, so my dad died, but that helped save a life. So there's some karmic balance here. And that is helping my grieving process. And we would just receive these stories. I had no involvement. I couldn't even fathom getting into this world. It was just kind of too painful, and it felt very isolating and scary. And then my uncle, my dad's older brother, I want to think it was 2007, so almost 20 years ago, we started saying, "Hey, we've learned that this is potentially genetic. We should all get scanned." He got scanned in 2007. He had an aortic aneurysm, which is when the aorta is ballooning out. It's what happens right before you dissect. And he went in. They saw the aneurysm. They fixed it, as they can do because they're brilliant magicians. And he's still alive to this day. That was almost 20 years ago. My dad's older
Ugh.
brother. My grandfather died of what we thought was a heart attack. We now know, no, it was this. This is our family gene. We have a variant that can carry this risk. And so, yeah, I think that really kicked me into high gear in 2007 of, oh, I need to get scanned frequently. How frequently? Again, I'm not a medical professional. You should talk to your doctor. But think about, we just thought that we had heart attacks with the Ritters had heart attacks was sort of the horrible legend. And it changed after my dad's diagnosis when, oh, it wasn't a heart attack. It was an aortic dissection. What even is that? I didn't even know what an aorta was in 2003. So I've come a long way. The community is growing, which is unfortunate because it's generally tragic. Although a lot of people join the foundation because their life was saved and they want to put that gratitude and they want to pay it forward. And so they put it into the foundation. And we really feel like we're doing special things.
Well,
But yeah,
you are doing special things, and we're very appreciative for that. And I do want to talk in a minute about how people can get in touch and contribute.
yeah.
But one last thing, and this is a little bit of like a highlight, and I want to talk about any highlights from 2025. But every year, I believe you do something called an Evening from the Heart Gala. And the version last year, I want to say it was in March. A good friend of mine is actually a contributor as well, Paulo Simas. And so that event in particular, I remember him sharing the playbill for this, featured several well-known actors, Kaylee Cuoco, who I just started watching on Vanished, by the way, a little plug for that
Oh
show.
yeah.
It's actually pretty good. Jason Alexander, who played George Costanza on Seinfeld, and then Adam Devine, reading from Three's Company's episode, Going to Pot. So obviously your dad played in the show back in the 70s and 80s. That must have been pretty cool to watch. And then on top of that, any other JRF highlights from 2025 that you want to share?
Yeah, that was incredible. And Kaylee has been a force for us, as have the cast of Eight Simple Rules, which is the show my dad was on when he passed. The actors who played his kids in particular, Marty Spangers and Amy Davidson and Kaylee, have just been a force for us and have shown up year after year. And so I just want to take a second to say thank you. But yeah, they did a staged reading of this Three's Company episode, and it was hilarious. And some of the original actors from the show played their roles. Priscilla Barnes, who I've known for many years, was there and played her role, and Richard Klein, who I had never met. So that was a very special party, and it was actually the gala was during Aortic Awareness Week, I think, or it was on September 12th. It might have been the following week was Aortic Awareness Week, which is, I think, 19th of September is the day. So anyway, it's that week, which is when it's all hands on deck. We sort of try to flood the socials and really engage our communities. And so that's exactly what it was. It was the gala, which was a great success, and we live streamed it. And I hope there's a way to still watch it because it was so funny. And then followed by Aortic Awareness Week. Um, and we doubled the engagement and awareness, which, I don't understand anything about looking at metrics, but I understand the importance of raising awareness. That's my goal. And we were very successful this last year. So we're optimistic that we can keep that ball rolling and growing. And we'll have many more fun evenings from the heart in the future.
Well, that's awesome. And I will try to dig that up because I would love to see it personally.
Yeah.
I know when my friend told me about it. I was a big Three's Company fan, and anyone that hasn't watched it, it's probably a little bit dated, but like the comedy is hilarious. The premise is that your dad was actually playing, I think, a gay man so he could live with these two other women platonically. Chrissy Summers, and I'm blanking on the other woman's name, but I think her name was
Well,
Janet
Joyce
on the show.
DeWitt, who played Janet.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
And it was just, it was so well done. Don Knotts was Mr. Farley for a while, right? And the landlord.
Yeah.
And so just
Uh,
the comedic moments were like over the top. And so I would highly recommend people go back and check that out if they get a chance.
yeah.
Um, Before we get into some more lighthearted questions, or at least sort of lightning round questions, I did tee this up, but where can people learn more about the John Ritter Foundation? Where can they go and donate, support, and how can people connect with you, Tyler, if you want people to engage you on X or Instagram or LinkedIn, or maybe you don't want them to engage with you other than through the foundation?
No, I'm very happy to engage with people, especially if people want to share their stories with me. A lot of times I'll post something. I'm only really on Instagram under a Tyler Ritter, and a lot of times I'm posting a lot about the foundation, and people will share their stories. And I wish I responded to all of them. I try to respond, um, but it does warm my heart to see the community, to hear people's stories, and sometimes they're devastating stories, and I'm here for it, and I can be a witness to those stories, and I can welcome you to the community. So that's what I'm good at. But if you have medical questions, if you're curious about this, if you still, after listening to this interview, you don't really get what it is because I'm talking about candy canes, go to johnritterfoundation.org. That has um, can answer a lot of your questions. You can see what we're all about, what we're trying to fund, the type of research and clinical trials. There's a lot of really interesting stuff we're doing. We have marathon runners, so we sponsor marathon runners every year. And if you know anyone running or you want to support those runners, that's a great event for us as well that we've been doing for over a decade. I trained for one of those marathons and eventually bowed out. It was not my sport. Better at supporting from the sidelines. Yeah, johnritterfoundation.org. You can see there. The foundation is on Instagram and X, I think. And I don't think we've gotten into TikTok, but yeah, check it out. All that information is on the website, so that's where you can find us.
Awesome. Well, I'll put that in the show notes so people can have easy access to it.
Thank you.
So let's now do a little bit of these lightning round questions that I do ask all of our guests. And so I want to start with, sort of what's keeping you light these days, a show or a podcast that you're binging right now, ideally something that's funny or light.
Yeah. Okay. So binging is hard with two little kids. I was all about the Netflix and binge, or whatever it was. But I have a lot of catching up to do. So I'm like, I'm not binging. I'm just catching up on a lot of episodes in a row when I should be sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm catching up on so funny. You said, right? Light and
It
funny.
could actually, you know what? I'm going to rephrase that because it could be dramatic, but it's not
Okay.
something that's like maybe a documentary, like the American Revolution
Yeah.
documentary
Yeah.
or whatever, right?
Yeah. So right now I'm catching up on the last season of Only Murders in the Building, which sounds dark if you don't know it, but it's very
Yes,
funny. And
Steve Martin and
Short,
Martin Short.
Selena Gomez,
Yep.
they're hilarious. And I have that going. Usually to cool down from something that's a little darker or scarier, there's like Pluribus that I'm going through.
Oh,
If you haven't seen The Studio, Seth Rogen's show, I just am talking about it every which way I look. I thought that show was brilliant, as are so many others. And the podcast that I'm going through, I love Conan. I've always loved Conan. I know my dad also loved him, uh, and he's just such a force for good and such a comedic genius. And his guests are funny, so I love listening to Conan and uh, Dana Carvey and David Spade. SNL. Oh, that's what I should say. SNL. I watch it every week. I always have. And So I just saw that Alexander Skarsgård was the last episode, and
Yep.
I'm always up to date on that.
Well, that's
That
good.
was
And
not
it,
lightning. I'm sorry. You said lightning round.
no,
I
you
am
know
a
what?
rambler.
We're doing fine on time, so it's actually
Okay,
okay that
good.
you took your time. I just mean that sometimes, believe it or not, we get certain guests. It's like a half hour, and we start 5 minutes late, and I'm like, I need to get through these because I know
Let's burn through. All
you're
right,
going to turn
you.
into a pumpkin, and I want to be
Okay.
respectful of your time, but I know we have a few more minutes here. So,
Okay. Oh, great.
um, so anyway, the next one I want to ask you is that you have met a lot of amazing, I mean, you have them all in your family, right? But out of all the amazing people you've met in your life, who has impressed you the most?
Hmm. Oh man. Okay, so there is an actress named Polly Perrette who plays. She
Yeah.
played Abby on NCIS
Yep.
for many, many, many years. I had the fortune of playing her brother, and she called me. She told me every episode that my character had ever shown up. She was a complete loving professional in that regard. We worked on building our sign language, our secret language that we had with each other. Um, that was one thing, just from like a creative standpoint. As a human being, she um, genuine. She's active. She's loving. She is truly, I believe, trying to make the world a better place. A lot of us say that we want to leave the world a better place, and we do our best. She is someone that I can pretty openly say that she is walking that walk. And just as far as how much she gives back to her community, she gives more than she takes. There's just no question. So I've always had a huge, warm, soft spot for Polly. And God, I mean, there's so many.
That's a good one though,
Yeah,
and
but I'll
I'm
stick it.
sure
I'll
Polly
leave
would
it there.
appreciate that. Yeah, no, and certainly you can keep going on because again, you've met a lot of really amazing people. But just for the listeners, so Polly Perrette, you will know who she is, especially if you've ever watched NCIS. She has very like distinct eyes. She's very funny, has a dry sense of humor. We'll make sure we tag her in this so she knows that you gave her some
Oh,
love
good,
as we
good. Yeah,
call
I
this
haven't
out.
talked to her for a couple of years. She'll run into my one of my two brothers. We all know her now, and so we're every once in a while we'll text back and forth. But it has been a long time, so that would be great. Yeah. Hi, Polly,
Well,
if you're
yep.
listening.
Shout out to Polly. So thank you for that one. And I love that was because we had a lot of different flavors of what people say and think, but that's a good one. That's a unique one. So a little bit heavier one, but maybe your biggest regret so far.
Biggest regret. Okay. Well, I think certainly came into the foundation late. Like, there's a part of me that's like, could I have done more earlier? Yes, but I also like can be comfortable with my personal process, and I think it's important for people to take care of themselves emotionally and mentally, which I think I had to do maybe before joining the foundation. That was where my head first went. I'm like, with this cause, could I have done something sooner? But I think I've been asked this before, and I think where my brain usually goes is college. You know, my dad passed away in my first week of freshman year of college, and I lost a few other people that same first semester, and I think I just was like running from myself pretty much all of college. And I had friends and I had fun, but I didn't challenge myself. I didn't like. There's a brilliant sketch group the college I went to. I went to Penn, and the sketch comedy there is brilliant. And I wish I had just tried out for it. I wish I had studied acting there. It would have been a different perspective. And I just wish I had applied myself. And that's what, if my kids decide to go to college or university, that would be my parting message of like, you can have a lot of fun. You're living far away. Potentially, you're living away from your family. That can invite a lot of, interesting times. But that you're also in the midst of some of the most brilliant, creative, thoughtful people. And just you may never have that chance again, to take classes that interest you on the periphery, even if it's not your career. And I think I just did not. There's a part of me that thinks maybe one day I'll like even go back and just dive back into that world. I think I was just trying to survive, and yeah, I wish I had met my potential there, and been kinder to myself and um, to maybe to others. I don't know. I probably could have been a better friend to some people, and been a better version of myself. But also, again, proud of my journey and moving forward, and making amends where I can, and trudging ahead.
Well, that's very sweet of you to share that. And I'd say, do remember to give yourself some grace, because I lost my dad a few years ago, and certainly much later in life than you did. And it's even then was such a destabilizing activity in my life, right? It's like, especially if you're fortunate enough to have a dad that you have a good relationship with, and it seems like that was the case, it's really, really hard. And especially when you have to go through that at such a young age during such formative times where, yeah, you should be having fun, but your world has just been turned upside down. And especially because it was so sudden with your dad, it wasn't like he was 85 and, dying of cancer. Not that that's a good thing either, but it's hard, and it's hard when
Yeah.
they're swept out of your life and you're like, wait, I thought I had 40 or 50 more years with this person. So
Yeah, and then you see the world, people just still walking around and ordering coffee, and you're just sort of in this daze of how is everybody just going on about their lives. And I do remember that was sort of like also my how people knew me at school. So if I introduced myself, it would just immediately be met with, "Oh, hey, nice. Oh my gosh, I heard." So it's just like, okay, so I'm just a downer everywhere I go, and
yeah.
making people uncomfortable and upset and sad for me, and it was just that's a rough combination. But yeah, losing a family member at any age. I mean, I think even at 18, when I lost my dad, um, one of the ways I think we all survive our grief is we think about, okay, who has it worse? I have a younger brother who's 5, that's got to be harder. There are kids who lose, to violence. That's got to be harder because then there's a, evil doer out there still on the street. So constantly just like trying to put things into perspective when the truth is life is hard. We all face tragedy. We can come together over that. We can grieve together. It's important to talk about it. It's important to talk about mental health, and certainly finding other people that can relate to it will help. I wish I had been more vocal in those 4 years at college and talked through it more. Um, and and yeah, we're on a crazy ride on this planet here, but there are a lot of people with great insight, with love in their heart, and just seek those people out.
I love it. I almost feel like that's our mic drop end, but I do have one more lighter question. Maybe that's the title that we'll use. But on a lighter front, I do like to find out sort of, we talked about your son and the drum kit, and you've been learning guitar. So which band or artist, ideally one that's no longer around or won't ever tour again, do
Mm.
you wish that you would have seen?
So I think my probably favorite concert experience. I went with my wife to Dodger Stadium to see Paul McCartney, and
Ooh,
Ringo Starr joined him. So not that it's a Beatles bingo, but certainly to have had the chance to see John and George in their solo careers, or as Beatles would be top. And then there's an Argentine band called Soda Stereo. That was the band that would get my son to dance in
mm,
utero while my wife was
oh,
pregnant.
really? Oh, I love
And
that.
so I feel a cosmic connection to the singer Cerati, who passed too young, unfortunately. Soda Stereo. That's some really fun 80s rock. Those would be my two.
Well,
Although I
good.
also, yeah, I,
Yeah.
I have to mention, it just popped into my mind. I had a friend who was at Coachella when they previewed that Tupac hologram.
Uh huh.
And Coachella is a wild place to be, and I guess a lot of people thought that that was really Tupac out on
Oh,
that
really?
stage,
Oh.
and were thinking, "Oh my gosh, it really was a whole conspiracy, and here he is." And them describing what it felt like in that for like maybe 10 seconds to think I'm seeing Tupac. I grew up a big hip hop fan, and Tupac was definitely top of the list. So that would have been, very moving experience too. And then, yeah, too many artists taken too young. That's the truth.
Well, those are some excellent choices, and I'll tell you, but I like that you had a branch of this. But probably a quarter of the people that I've asked this question to have said the Beatles, because
Oh,
I think it's obviously a band that we can't see again and would
Yeah.
be amazing to see. And so I'm in that same camp. But
Yeah.
I'm going to look up the Argentine band and I'll see if I can throw that on Spotify, and maybe we'll throw a link into the
Oh,
show
that's
notes as
great.
well so people can check it out.
They're so fun. It's a great, great band. And if you like 80s rock, they're just like cream of the crop.
Well, and if they get your son to dance in utero,
That's
that
right.
says something, right? Well, with that, Tyler, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for sharing your time and your energy, and you just have such a nice sort of brightness to you. And thank you for all the good that you and the foundation are putting into the world. I really appreciate you taking the time today.
So much, Aaron. I love what you're doing with this podcast. I'm a fan. I hope that we cross paths sometime again in the future.
I do too. I'm going to take you up on that. I'll be down in LA sometime, and I'll come knocking on your door. I'll text you ahead of time, and you'll be like, "Who are you
Well
again?"
done.
Yeah, no,
Yes.
but well, maybe we can find a time to get a coffee or something like that in the next year or so. Awesome.